Yeah, he'll be.
Hey, man.
Hello, good afternoon. We're going to get this meeting started. Hello. Good afternoon. If we could all quiet down in the room so that we could get this meeting started. Thank you. This is a meeting of the Public Works Committee. I'm Councilmember Jose Huizar, Chair of the committee. I'm joined today by Councilmember Greg Smith. We have about 7 items on the agenda. With the concurrence of my colleague, we'll have item number 6 go on consent. And number 7, we could continue. Is that okay with you, Mr. Smith? Very good. So ordered. And we'll take up item number 3 first. Item number 3, Clerk, if you could read that.
Item number 3, continued from January 6th, 2010. City engineer report relative to the vacation of Polo Lane from Bel Air Road to its easterly terminus. Vacation E1401109.
There's no cards on this item. CLA, CAO, any comments on this? No? Okay, so we'll motion to approve. Second, moved. So ordered. Okay. And now we'll go on to items 1 and 2. The first item is a presentation by the Board of Public Works or the representatives and the CAO on the proposed 2010-11 budget. Item 2 is related, which is a discussion of the CAO's 3-year plan to fiscal sustainability. So even if we take up item number 1, which is on the board itself, it will obviously cross into some of the issues in number 2, but we'll get more in depth on all of the public works departments for number 2. So, Clerk, you could read item number 1, please, for the record.
Item number 1, discussion of the Board of Public Works proposed 2010-11 budget, impact of early retirement incentive program, and planned restructuring of Bureau of Operations and strategies for filling positions given city hiring freeze and bargaining agreements requiring employees to agree to transfers to positions in other units.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here.
This is Paula Daniels. I'm President Pro Tem of the Board of Public Works, and I want to extend the regrets of our Commission President, Cynthia Ruiz, who's in the hospital and unable to be here today. Otherwise, she certainly would. Our Commission Vice President, Julie Gutman, had to leave for an emergency, a death in her family. So I'm here representing our board and simply at this point for this agenda item to introduce our Executive Officer, Jim Gibson, who will lead the report on this one.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim Gibson, Board of Public Works. We have submitted our 2010-2011 budget in compliance with the mayor's instructions to maintain the status quo. This includes the absorption of approximately $1.3 million in cuts from last year that are continuing into this year. We are proposing the reduction of 21 positions in the board office budget, including 18 regular positions and 3 special funded positions. We are asking that 10 positions regular positions be held vacant in order to fund $650,000 in ERIP payouts for 2011-2012. Overall, we have a total of 45 vacancies, including 25 ERIP vacancies. We were requested during the last exercise to list 7 positions for potential layoff. We've been able to move all 7 of those positions into special funded positions in the Bureaus of Engineering and the Bureau of Sanitation.
Okay.
1 position in street lighting. The primary organization or division in our organization is going to be impacted by this is the Office of Accounting. Office of Accounting is losing 16 people to ERIP. They have a total of 24 vacancies. They have a 30% vacancy rate. The other organization that's being primarily impacted is Office of Community Beautification. They have a very small staff. They're maintaining their contractual services dollars in order to provide graffiti removal. We are accepting of the elimination of $500,000 in community beautification grants. OCB has been able to identify an additional $350,000 in grant funds that were previously awarded, but those projects did not go forward for a variety of reasons. So we're using that $350,000 to continue that program. As I said, we've had a significant impact in the Office of Accounting. Office of Accounting has moved a number of their positions that were either fully general funded or partially general funded into special funded positions. That creates obvious problems with regard to providing services that are funded through the general fund. We have recently lost our director. We have both of the assistant directors are on the ERIP and will be leaving soon. Gene Ninfa will be leaving next month. Gene Stu will be leaving the following month. We have a brand new director, and that is Lyndon Salvador, and he will be talking to you about the impacts of ERIP and other vacancies on the Office of Accounting.
Okay.
The impact of Lyndon Salvador, Office
You
of
speak
Accounting.
into the microphone, please. Okay. Thank you.
Lyndon Salvador, Office of Accounting. The impact of the ERIP and the vacancies in the Office of Accounting not only affects our operations but also the operations of the other bureaus in the department, because we do the centralized accounting for all the funds that the bureaus are using in their programs. If we are going to lose the two assistant directors and not backfilling one, this will have a heavy strain in the leadership of the office. And if you're not able to backfill the critical positions, especially in those areas that are supporting the SCNM, the Sewer Construction Maintenance Fund, it will be very difficult for us to respond or to provide the accounting and financial support to the bureaus operating this fund. There are also other critical funds that the office is handling, for example, the Public Works Trust Fund, and that currently is being managed or directly under the supervision of one of the assistant directors. And if we are going to lose that assistant directors, the expertise in handling this Public Works Trust Fund is very critical. There are other areas that we are trying to, other responsibilities that we spread with our remaining staff, and with the ERIP, the staff will have to bear more responsibilities on top of the already furloughs that they have, because they are majority EAA represented positions.
The other office that we have significant impacts to because of the ERIP is the Office of Community Beautification, and that's going to be primarily affect their ability to continue to monitor effectively the community-based organizations that are providing the graffiti removal program. They're going to have and are experiencing delays in responding to 311 calls. They have less time to track removal requests, and they're having great difficulty in providing support for the processing of restitution cases, including appearance in courts, in the courts. We are going to be requesting to backfill some accounting positions. We're looking at 7 to 9 accounting positions that we would like to backfill. We're going to be requesting to backfill 2 positions in OCB in order to properly manage the approximately $7 million in graffiti removal contracts that we have.
Great, thank you. And the numbers you proposed today or mentioned today, are those before or after, or considering the discussions that the council is having right now and the proposed cuts for this year and next year?
Those include the 1,000 position layoffs that the council required at the mayor.
But it's part of those?
It is
It's part of those,
Doesn't
okay. These are
include
not in
the
addition to those,
layoffs
okay.
that I mentioned.
So it's part of those, okay. And On the accounting side, so when you say you're going to backfill, how many positions?
We are requesting to backfill 9 positions. I think 5 are special, or 6 are special funded. 3 are partially funded. About 30% is special funded, and 60% is general funded.
Okay, and when you say backfill, what does that mean? What doesn't get done, or what do you mean by backfill?
We have to request, because these positions are ERIP positions, we have to request, put in a formal request to fill these positions.
Okay.
And freeze and request for filling up this position.
And not all of the vacancies in accounting are ERIP vacancies, so there are non-ERIP vacancies that we will ask to be filled and go through the managed hiring process.
Mr. Smith?
How many were ERIP versus vacant positions?
Of the 9, we could do a little swapping around.
Okay.
We could do a little swapping around.
So
So really,
basically,
probably we would only be asking for 2 or 3 ERIP.
2 or 3 ERIP, and the rest would be through managed hiring?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if all goes according to what you have today, proposed today, what will not get done that's being done this year?
There will be significant delays in paying invoices, especially for our construction projects. There will be significant delays in the preparation of our the financial report of the sewer construction management SCNM fund. And if there is delay in the preparation of the financial statements, there will be some questions for those that have we borrow funds from, like our bond holders. Also, there is one critical position, a partially funded general fund position that handles the receivables of the whole department. If this is not backfilled, there will be significant delay in recording and accounting for receivables, not only for special funds, but also for the general fund.
And we provided that information in our response to the ERIP impact survey, and specifically, we're looking at delays of $3 million to $5 million in general fund revenue recoveries due to less frequent B-permit billings that we'll be able to do. We're looking at potential delinquent payments to vendors and construction contractors that are going to have a significant impact on our construction program, may require us to pay penalties because we're required by law to pay those bills within 30 days. We're not sure we're going to be able to do that. Will be delays in the processing, appropriation, and encumbrance documents. We're looking at the possibility of having delays in our annual financial statements that could impact the city's bond ratings. So those are a few of the significant issues that face us, particularly in the Office of Accounting. Like I said, they have been very hard hit. Even prior to ERIP, they had a number of vacancies. They have about a 30% or more. They have a 30% vacancy rate when you factor in furloughs. You know, we're looking at 35 to 40% loss of staff.
Okay. And when you backfill and get special permission to fill these positions, how long does that take?
I wish we knew.
What are you planning for right now?
Well, we're looking at anywhere from 30 to 60 days, but we just have no idea how long it's going to take us to backfill that and how long it's going to take to go through the managed hiring process and how many other people or departments we're going to be competing with for that.
Yeah.
We may also request, we have requested a 90-day contract, for example, for Craig. That took two and a half months. By the time we got a partial approval for that, we found out the delays in the implementation of FMS are going to be put off for a year, so we're delaying that request. We may be requesting additional 90-day contracts.
There's also,
One for the executive office.
I'm sorry, I wanted to add, there's also the problem of all of the accounting offices across the city are impacted, and so we're going to have difficulty finding people to fill these positions. We really need personnel to do some recruiting and processing and establishing eligibility lists.
There is no
in order
existing
to do
list?
that. I don't believe so. I think everything's pretty exhausted.
Citywide, for some reason, the accounting series has been disproportionately impacted. It's a problem.
Any other questions, Mr. Smith?
Just a couple. And I think as you look at managed hiring, if there's no list, you're not going to see anybody till the end of the year. That's the problem, And part of the problem is they had existing lists, but the department stopped testing. So if the list expired, then there's nothing out there. And if you're sure the list is expired, you're not going to see anything for a long time. So then the option may be to look to, hiring out short-term contract personnel, account type style. Hire Bob.
Yeah, one thing that the CAO and the mayor's office has proposed and are looking at is developing 90-day contracts for those who are leaving on ERIP within the accounting series, and essentially having experienced people to draw from for like an account temps kind of a situation. There's always, I guess, the possibility of emergency appointments that you can get for 6 months.
Assuming you can get managed hiring to approve.
Correct.
On that point, we found out by accident a few months ago, or a month ago, in police, that the top priority for the department had authorized 26 new detective positions. Managed hiring had turned it down, and that was their top request for the year. Council never knew about it, and they didn't know about it until about 4 months later when the police told us, by the way, we can't do that DNA processing because we couldn't hire the people. We went, what do you mean? It was the top priority. They said managed hiring turned it down. So there's now a new system that allows managed hiring to notify the council when they turn down these positions. But if you have a situation where you've requested this, there's an urgent and absolute need, and you get turned down by managed hiring, please contact the chairman of the committee or Mr. Parks, chairman of Budget and Finance, because we're kind of watch those kind of denials that they're making that sometimes are counterproductive to the better good of the city. So on that. And then secondly, and just an FYI, we discussed the other day, and I don't know if we brought forward the motion yet or not, that expanding the 90-day hiring to 120 days too under the circumstances. So we're going to give ourselves a little more leeway, and that should come forward shortly. On beautification, you said you're basically sweeping $350,000 from old unfinished projects, moving it forward. Is that for next year's funding?
No, that's actually for this year's
To complete
funding. We'll
this
be going through the same process next year. We'll do the same. We'll do the same thing. And I know we were proposed for elimination on those funds as well for next year.
Well, we had to fight.
This year's funds were swept,
Yeah.
and we did find $350,000. We've already gone through that process. We've reviewed applications, and we've identified grantees.
Okay. And do you see any reduction in the ability to contract for the graffiti services? Are you going to continue to give out the community grants at the same time you're going to fund?
We're not going to be giving out community grants unless we can find existing dollars, and if the council allows us to use those existing funds to issue grants. One of the things that I'm glad you mentioned that we need to bring up is the fact that we've been requested, as you know, to negotiate with the existing service contractors for a 10% reduction. And for those that don't go along with that, the possibility of them terminating the contract. Our CBOs that we contract with for graffiti removal are considered service contracts, and they are primarily with nonprofits. They pay their crews the living wage as required by the city. So that really almost eliminates entirely our ability to negotiate any kind of reduction on those particular contracts, and those are the only consultant contracts that we have on the board.
Yeah. I think one of the fallacies of the news media and the controller is their comments about contracting out these contracts and 10% reductions is most of the public works stuff, you can't get cuts, or it results in a cut in service because you're paying for an exact service. You're not paying for a consulting contract and asking lawyers to take less money. You're asking for a specific job to be done, and they're either going to do that job for that dollar amount or they're not going to do it. So I don't think you're going to see much in the way of give back in the public works area. One last thing on the beautification. If you're looking at a probability that you won't see funding this year in the budget for community grants, will the $350 be enough to keep whole the graffiti contracts?
Well, the community beautification grants aren't really related to the beautification grants are not related to the graffiti removal. It's not related to the community.
Yeah, but it was in the same office. I'm saying, is there going to be enough money in that office to keep that function alive, at least if you lose the community grant side of it?
I believe so. The person who's administering that program is not scheduled for elimination. If I'm wrong, Paul Ratz is in the back of the room. You can come and correct me.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Looked a little surprised right now. Finally, I know in the next item, we're going to speak more generally about possible consolidations and the bigger picture, but from your perspective, as the executive of this board, are you contemplating any internal reorganization at this time?
In the department as a whole?
Or the board?
In the board, we are restructuring in the Office of Accounting. We will be restructuring in our personnel office. We'll be downgrading. We'll be downsizing our hierarchy. We'll have fewer higher level people to go around, and that's included in the Office of Accounting. It currently has 2 assistant directors. We'll probably downsize to 1 assistant director. Same thing with MAS. We'll downsize to 1 assistant director. Hopefully, we'll be able to get by with that.
Okay, thank you. This was an informational item, so thank you. No action necessary on this. We'll go on to item number 2. Clerk?
Item number 2, discussion of the city administrative officer's mid-year financial status and 3-year plan to fiscal responsibility reports and various recommendations regarding the Board of Public Works and Bureaus of Contract Management, Engineering, Street Lighting, and Street Services.
Just your question.
Good afternoon. I'm David Hirano with the Office of the CAO. Before you have a report from our office dated January 29th that lays out the skeletons of a plan for where we should go as a city in the next 3 years. One of the things that we've talked about in full council and seem to be talking about ad nauseum is the situation that the city is in currently, and the impacts of ERIP and so forth. And what we're finding is that we are having not only a need to downsize government and save money, but we're also finding that we have a need to restructure due to the impacts of the downsizing, both through ERIP and through the loss of jobs from the 1,000 layoffs. As we move forward, we have certain operations which are struggling to survive effectively, and some of those operations, like we just talked about with the Board of Public Works, are in kind of the back shop areas, the accounting, the administrative support, clerical and IT, human resources support areas. And if we let those areas get too low in support, then they will eventually start negatively impacting service delivery in the field. So we are trying to proactively look at ways to restructure and to ensure that we have an operating city and an effective city as we move forward in this new environment. So before you in our 3-year plan to fiscal sustainability, there are approximately 7 to 9 items, depending on how you want to count them, that relate to the Department of Public Works and the jurisdiction of this committee. The first item is called the Department of Public Works Reorganization, and that really speaks to looking at how we approach the organization of the Department of Public Works. Currently, the Department of Public Works, as you're aware, is headed by a full-time commission and staffed by a board office, and then there's a somewhat loose conglomeration of bureaus that report to the board, but sort of act as independent departments as well. We are proposing to look at different options of governance for that entire department and see whether there might be a better, more cost-effective, and definitely more efficient way of managing that department. Let me also state that we have no preconceived notions walking into any of these. And the areas that we've identified for study, we've identified them as areas that need study and that are, in our view, rather high priority areas for study, but we don't have any preconceived notions of the outcome. We also realize that in our office, we may not be the smartest people or the people that are closest to the operations and know the best as to what is required, so we are proposing to include in all these studies all the stakeholders that we can find, and we welcome any comments from your offices, any of the departments or any of the community members that we can use to come to a practical solution. So let me run down the list really quickly of some of the areas that we are proposing to look at, or actually, I guess the council has instructed us to look at with the adoption of the 3-year plan. And we have analysts here from our office that can address each one of those in a little bit more detail and answer some questions for you. And I believe I saw a full complement of bureaus represented behind us, and I'm sure they'll want to have their say and offer their comments. So
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want my back to them, actually, if I was you.
that would be your choice, sir. Okay, so other than looking at governance for the Department of Public Works, we have proposed to look at, review the functions of the Department of Transportation and the Department of Public Works, and look at opportunities to consolidate them and hopefully find some operational efficiency and synergies that might work. Obviously, we'd be looking at ways to restructure and flatten organizations a little bit, push more of the costs out into the field and away from management. But we also realize that we have, through the early retirement program and through the layoff process, lost a lot of these people already. So we think that some of this may actually be a matter of survival. In addition, we've want to look at the area of financial management and accounting. We say financial management and accounting. Accounting is critical to everything that we do in budgeting and rate setting and any sort of financial management. But they're getting hit very hard. Now, as you heard from the board, their capacity is down at least 30%, if not more. We don't have the ability to backfill them until July 1, and then we'll have to be very selective on how we do that. And every department across the city is experiencing these challenges. So in looking also at financial management and accounting consolidation, if we were to assume that DOT would be an eligible candidate for consolidation with Public Works, we would include DOT in this study as well. The third area is we would propose to look at the strategic approach to how we design and deliver capital projects. We are finding that there are a variety of different departments in the city. They all have design units and they all have responsibility for delivering capital projects. And we are finding that we have significant backlogs in the delivery of capital projects and aren't able to get them out the door, in our office's opinion, fast enough. We believe that we would like to take a look at this and see if there's a better way to get projects out the door, create jobs, improve our communities at this time. We think that's critically important. And as we start to lose staff, we don't want to make this problem worse. We want to find a way to proactively address this. A fourth area we propose to look at is to look at different ways to provide refuse collection services. We propose to start with the provision of multifamily residential collection. Specifically, we want to look at the possibility of establishing a franchise system. Fifth area would be to look at how we approach the management of our city parking facilities. And when I say parking, I don't mean the stuff you've been talking about under the P3 model or the meters. But there's a different part of the system that has so far gone undiscussed, and that would be approximately 105 surface parking lots that DOT owns, along with a variety of employee-owned lots that General Services runs. We believe that those assets are underutilized and that we should be looking at ways to better utilize them, recover more revenue, or turn them over to someone else who can do a better job managing them. And we just believe they're underutilized at this point, and we'd like to see what alternatives there are to better utilize them.
Those are currently run under GSD.
Only a small portion of them are. There's 105 lots that are under DOT's jurisdiction. So if we were to consolidate DOT into Public Works, then there would be some area of jurisdiction for this committee yet to be determined, I guess. Finally, the Bureau of Street Services, we've been looking at the activities the Bureau of Street Services performs, and we have identified some areas we would like to study for possibly contracting out. I say possibly contracting out because I'm not sure that we know if that's the best alternative, but we do know that we want to take a look at the way we deliver services and see whether there isn't a more cost-effective way to deliver some of these services. And the services that we'd be talking about in particular are street tree trimming and maintenance, large street improvement, streetscape and roadway rehab, grant-funded special roadway projects, and median island maintenance. And to be clear, we're not really talking about contracting out all pavement maintenance or rehab. We want to establish a core of city forces that can do that work. We think that's a priority function for the Bureau of Street Services, and we want to do that in-house. However, we want to be able to manage some of the peak workload for street services through the use of contracts, and we think that some of our grant projects are perfect for that, and some of the large projects may be perfect for that. So, given that, I'd be willing to take questions, and if you would like to tell me how you'd like to proceed, we can go down the list. Our analysts can come up and answer questions, discuss this with you, or if you'd like to approach the department, have the departments come up. I believe they're all here.
Yeah.
What's your pleasure?
Well, first I have a general question on process and timing, and then, if it's okay with my colleague, we might want to call up some of the bureau heads to see any thoughts on
Okay.
generally what we see before us, because I know what we see before us is just a number of items that you will look at and study, like you said.
Correct.
There's no preconceived notions, but it's
Correct.
worth studying. So any points of view or any items that the bureau chiefs might want to share with us at this time would be helpful, so that we could all be on the same page as we move forward with this. But in terms of process and timing, when do you intend to be complete with your study?
Those are good questions. We are currently doing that assessment internally. There are a couple of these that we are trying to decide how quickly we can complete them, whether they can be, the results could be included in the 2010-11 budget. There are others that are clearly longer term. For example, looking at consolidating DOT into Public Works cannot be done in the next 3 months, but we may be looking at 18-month to 2-year process, and we may need to look at phasing it. There are many more stakeholders we have to get involved, and both street services and DOT have a very wide assortment of activities they're involved in that we have to look at.
Yeah.
So it's not a short-term process.
So you're going to take a look at all of these, and some you're going to obviously come up with public reports sooner than others as you move forward. And it's a 3-year plan, so you'll
Right.
come up with some within that 3 years, right?
Yes, we'll be back with more reports, definitely.
And when you talk about combining Department of Transportation with Public Works, you mean the whole departments? I thought it was just certain functions within those. I mean, you've a couple of...
Initially, we would look at the entire departments and look at the wide range of activities they perform and see whether there are logical connections that can be made, synergies that can be achieved. And we'll go from there. Like I said, we don't come with any preconceived notions. We're not going to necessarily say that, for example, that traffic operations shouldn't be a part of it. And DOT will initially start with them as part of the study and see whether it makes sense to move forward.
Okay. Mr. Smith, any general questions or comments before we turn it over to the board and the bureaus?
Let me hear from the board, and then we'll do specifics.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that obviously there's a lot to consider in this report, and we are taking a thorough look at it. There's a number of details that if any of the bureau chiefs that are here want to respond to, they could feel welcome to. But as a board and a department, we're considering the proposals. I do think that, we're going to prepare a plan, and we will get back to you on that within a few weeks, because there's so much to go through on that. But I do want to say briefly that I appreciate the view of the CIO's office to take into account the views of the various stakeholders. And the stakeholders would not just be internal, but external, because obviously Public Works serves a very broad community. So it would include the environmental community, the contracting community, the labor community, and many others. I want to say, as an external stakeholder, that the current structure of the Board of Public Works, the flat structure it currently has proven historically to be much more nimble, accountable, and responsive than many other structures in many municipalities. Because you have the 5 full-time commissioners and the 5 bureau heads, the accountability and transparency in terms of contracting, initiatives, and so forth has proven to be a good one so far. So, in any event, we're looking seriously at these issues, and we'll get back to you in a few weeks.
A couple things. As you talked about delivering of public works projects on a more timely basis, and I've struggled a couple of times trying to get things through sometimes, and I understand what you're saying sometimes. Are you looking at what the state has done, is looking more to design build type contracting, or are you looking at, how are you looking at consolidating or changing that system then?
Well, design build is definitely an option. The project, though, has to fit the model in order to be effective. So I think we'll have to be looking at the kinds of projects that we have backlogged and what fits and what doesn't. There may be more than one solution in here. It may be that design build is part of the solution, and then a reorganization of the design staff is part of the equation. We certainly don't know at this point. We want to keep an open mind to all those ideas. And the end goal is to get these projects out and get them on the street and create jobs and spend the money that we've been allocated. So,
on the idea of the Transportation Department and Bureau of Street Services consolidation issue, I know I've talked to Rita Robinson, and she's supportive of the concept, which is unique that a general manager would say, go ahead and break my department up.
yes.
One thing, and maybe we'll get Rita back in Public Works, which was not a bad thing, because Rita was one of the best we ever had. As we look at that, I hope you'll take in mind that, and I said this once before, that as you look at transportation, that some of those functions have to go to the planning department, not street services, and some of those, particularly park enforcement, needs to go back to the police department, which is where it started, where it belongs. It's only in the DOT because of a political fight with a former mayor. So those are, I support those ideas. I think it can be great energy brought to BOSS by bringing in some of those planning functions on streets that they now rely on DOT to do. So I think there's energy there and synergy. And we did that a few years ago when we brought street trees out as a separate standing function into BOSS, and then, as I recall, we took some elements of DOT at that time over to BOSS, made it stronger. I think we can make a really great street department if we do this very wisely. So I'm supportive of that. I know the discussion of whether we need a board of public works or not has been something that's been talked around this building for the 30 years I've been here.
Yeah.
At least 4 or 5 times there's been votes on it. And I hear the arguments of the commissioners. So I'll wait to see what you come back with on that. As you look at street servicing, you talked about doing some contracting for surge work. Would you build in a baseline based then on some sort of average funding that we get from gas tax, et cetera, as a baseline to operate a department on, and say anytime you have more money, you do that on contract only? Is that what you're talking about?
Conceptually, that would be an approach, yes. And we have to determine what that baseline is. But yes, that's conceptual. We want to maintain a solid level of resurfacing and resurfacing staff and capacity in the city. We want to avoid the peaks and valleys and the need to lay off people in hard times. So,
well, fortunately, Bill's been very creative not having to lay off people over the years, even when we had down cycles. So
he is very creative.
Very creative. One good thing is, I don't know if you're aware, but the State League of Cities is putting on the ballot an initiative that's going to lock in certain funds that historically went to cities. The state has taken away. One of the most vibrant is the gas tax. And say the state of California, you may never touch them under any circumstance
Good.
forever. That will stay in the city's pocket. There's some funding that will stay in schools' pockets, and the voters are definitely going to vote for that because they're tied to Sacramento. So that would create, I think, a common baseline that we can always count on if you do that assumption. One last thing, and I had a major fight with the mayor's office last year on the budget on this, and that was, as he wanted to inflict shared sacrifice on Bureau of Street Lighting, or street maintenance, street lighting maintenance, which is a totally special funded, assessment funded function. And you can't take people and put them on furloughs, and you can't lay them off, and you can't touch that because that goes right to the base of how they're funded. So if the people are paying X dollar, they get X service, and you can't fool with that. How would you move that function? And I know you're talking about building a couple super agencies in the department. Where would you put that? How would you put that anywhere?
Depending on who you listen to, there are different camps on what should happen with street lighting. If you ask the current general manager, he will tell you either leave us alone or send us to what Department of Water and Power. There are others who maybe think that the DOT is a natural fitter with street lighting. We'll have to go through that, and we'll have to look at the different options and see what are the benefits. Personally, I don't have any preconceived notions. I don't think we're going to approach it from that perspective. As for your comment about the furloughs, that's something that we're working through and on a different front as to how we deal with furloughs and special funds, because it's not just an issue for places like street lighting, but it's an issue in places like wastewater. So we have to figure out exactly what the strategy is going to be, and unfortunately, I'm not the right guy to ask. If you'd like to have a discussion along that line, or if you want me to get somebody down here who can answer that question, I can do so.
I think we can have that offline discussion. It's just a concern I have as I look at Public Works. There's many ways you could reconfigure it to make it work, and no matter what you do, there's this one little bureau over there that I don't know where it goes. So
Yeah.
as you reconstruct this puzzle, I don't know how it fits in anywhere. So we'll obviously have these discussions in the near term. So I just wanted to query your thoughts on it.
Okay.
Thank you. And in your thinking, have you looked at any of these research items that could be completed for the next fiscal year?
Yeah, we're in the process of doing that right now. I think at the staff level, we have some ideas about what might be completed, what we might be able to complete prior to July 1. But before I answer that question, I'd sure like to run that through Mr. Santana to make sure he agrees, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. And so thank you. I think what we'll do as well, this committee is going to pay close attention to this process. And
Please.
we will agendize items in this committee as we go forward, obviously with your guidance as to what you think is ready for public discussion and consumption. But what I would like to do is, as much as can be done to adopt for next fiscal year, to please bring that forward. I know it's going to, you guys and gals are already busy with a number of things in the budget, but as much as we can do for this upcoming fiscal year and be ready for that, please bring that forward, and my office will work with yours to bring those items forward.
Okay.
And not to say we're going to adopt all of them, but obviously you're going to come forward with recommendations and suggestions, and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And is there any bureau chiefs who are present or representatives from those bureaus to share any comments with the committee or with the CAO as we move forward?
Good afternoon, council members. Nazario Salcedo, Assistant Director, Bureau of Street Services. I just wanted to emphasize that we're working very closely with the CAO, and we're working with all the other bureau heads to indeed try to find efficiencies. For example, relative to the consolidation with the Department of Transportation, it is only natural to think that DOT and street services provide similar services. I think the common denominator is streets, But there are some areas of expertise that actually, I mean, we need to discuss in detail, because we got to be surgical, because if we're not going to be able to provide efficiencies and a better service to our residents, what's the purpose of doing consolidation just by the mere fact that we want to do consolidation? So we're working very closely with the CAO to try to identify those areas where we can be experts and where we can provide a benefit to the city as a whole. Relative to the proposed loss of 100 employees in the urban forestry division, well, we know very well that the urban forestry division is critical in terms of emergencies, in terms of keeping the public right of way passable and safe. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had several days of rain, and needless to say, almost 90% of those emergency calls were related to trees. So trees are very important, and we're working very closely with the CAO to try to identify the ways to save most of those jobs. As a matter of fact, David and I are working very closely with the Department of Water and Power. They do have 2 contracts that we're trying to utilize to move these proposed employees for elimination, move them into those areas. One of them, and I'm meeting tomorrow with my counterpart in the water side, is the paving of the trenches that they perform in the middle of the street. Water and Power, the water side of Water and Power has a 5-year to 10-year program that will be replacing water mains every year. Approximately, they will be replacing between 100,000 and 300,000 linear feet of water mains on the street. Needless to say, once they perform the trenching, they need an agency. In this case, they currently have a contractor. They need an agency to top the street and bring it to the existing surface level. Well, this is where, in our conversation with the Department of Water and Power, we were able to identify that approximately 86 positions can be used to perform the work that DWP is trying to accomplish through a contract with the Bureau of Street Services. I think we feel very confident that, and very grateful that the Department of Water and Power, especially the water side, are working very closely with us, and they're very open-minded, and they're very supportive of the efforts that we're trying to make here.
Great, thank you. And yes, that motion that I put forward through council, the item was supposed to have been taken up yesterday in the Energy Environmental Committee, but it was continued. But I understand there's been a lot of work on that, which is good. And you mentioned that there were approximately 86 jobs that might be saved from that, and there are 2 contracts. How much are those contracts?
Well, actually, I'm talking about the trenching. That's for the trenching side and the water blowouts. Well, I think it's a well-known fact that water blowouts are growing in exponential proportions in the city of LA. Every morning when you turn on the TV, there's always one happening on the breaking news. So they need quick response from the Bureau of Street Services. We currently have an MOU with Water and Power to be their contractor as they fix the water blowouts. So we're trying to duplicate and mirror the same configuration, the same work, the same partnership that we have, and move this great partnership to the side of trench resurfacing.
That's good. And to the CAO, the tree trimming contracts and the street resurfacing, we know the dollar amount of contracts the DWP has right now?
You know, Mark? Being told it's 9.2 million.
Okay, annually. And one of the items that was brought up yesterday by the DWP general manager is job retraining or retraining of the workers. To the CAO, do you look at that as much of an obstacle, or do you think it could be overcome?
All obstacles can be overcome. I think the primary obstacle on that would be cost.
Cost?
Yeah.
What type of costs are associated with retraining?
Depending on I don't know which job the general manager is referring to. If it's line clearance and tree trimming, you know, they've stated that they need 18 months of continuous apprenticeship in order to certify a line clearance worker. I don't know if that will continue to hold true if we have additional conversations with them, or if there's another way of going about it. but, you know, if there's another job that he's talking about, I wouldn't have any clues. One.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you for those comments.
Hi, good afternoon. Eddie Brahimian really wanted to be here, but he's at the mayor's GM meeting, so I'm going to go ahead and discuss the Bureau of Street Lighting item. I'm Norma Sahakian, Assistant Director of the Bureau of Street Lighting, and the Bureau of Street Lighting understands that all the proposals need to be on the table, and we're willing and we would like to work with the CAO to see where this 3-year proposal ends up. But we do have some grave concerns. In terms of the efficiencies that are being stated in the proposals, it's very hard for us to see where the efficiencies would be in decentralizing the Bureau of Street Lighting. As you know, the Bureau of Street Lighting is 100% special funded, and it is illegal to use the funds for any other purpose. And all of our various functions in the Bureau, our engineering, our maintenance, our financial, our Prop 218 section, all work very closely together in order to make sure everything we do is in compliance with Proposition 218. So we would like to look forward working with the CAO as far as looking for where these efficiencies would be. We have grave concerns. We are in charge of the Street Lighting Maintenance Assessment Fund, and that's a stable fund that comes in annually, and we don't want to see anything that will actually jeopardize the fund. So we want to make sure that any proposals that go forward will not jeopardize the Street Lighting Maintenance Fund, in addition to exposing the city to any liabilities, or we don't want to increase the expenditures on our fund due to additional bureaucracy. So we're very anxious to work with the CAO on that.
Great, thank you. Thank you for those comments. Anyone else? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Good afternoon, Deborah Weintraub from the Bureau of Engineering, Chief Deputy City Engineer. I'll just mimic what's been said, which is we're quite willing to work closely with the CAO on these proposals. Some of our concerns are that we're a Bureau of professionals, and it takes us a good 4 to 6 years to develop those professionals to be licensed architects and engineers. As we've seen our staff reduce in recent years, and particularly through EBRIP now and through other transfers, we do have concerns just about maintaining the quality of the staff. We have had a model of public-private partnership. We do a significant amount of contracting, so that we have felt that we have staff for the baseline work, and we contract for peaks when it's needed. We can continue to do that, but you know, in terms of monitoring and being successful when we're audited with the way our funds are spent, there's a certain point at which it will become very difficult to maintain the quality of what we do. We're primarily a capital delivery organization. All of our focus is on getting public works projects out in a timely and cost-effective manner, and we'd like to continue to do that. That's what we do best.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much, and unless there are any other questions, we ask the CAO to please keep in contact with the bureaus, with all stakeholders, as was mentioned earlier by the board member, and we're certainly going to attempt to be as transparent, open, and create as much communication as possible through this process, because indeed it's not an easy one. It's going to be difficult, but I think in order for us to get where we need to get, we all need to be informed and know what the expectations are of one another as we move forward. So thank you, and we look forward to working with you as well.
Okay, thank you.
There's one speaker on this item, so I'll go to that. Teresa Sanchez.
Good afternoon, Mr. Huizar, Mr. Smith. My name is Teresa Sanchez. I'm with SEIU Local 721, and just wanted to say a few brief words in support of your motion, Mr. Huizar, Councilmember Huizar, of bringing the DWP tree trimming contracts over to the Bureau of Street Services. In fact, we'd like to see tree trimming services consolidated citywide, because we believe that our urban forestry division is the best in any place. We believe that this could actually improve efficiency, and we could also, we believe, ultimately save the city a lot of money by consolidating the route, so you're doing line clearance while you're doing other parts of the routine street tree work. I also want to update you on the proposal regarding the tree trimming tree surgeon academy. You may not be aware that we've done substantial work over the past year in partnership with the LA Community College District to actually establish a tree surgeon academy. We're probably about 95% of the way there in terms of planning and curriculum development. If we were to bring the line clearance over, we'd have to tweak that a little bit so that we could include the 18 months or whatever would be the requirement to do the line clearing apprentice. But we believe we have the capacity to do that. I spoke to the Vice Chancellor of the College District last night. He's very enthusiastic and said they're willing to do whatever they can in partnership with us to help move that program along. We also believe that that's important to think not only about the crisis we face now, but the workforce of the future. And by creating that academy and that apprenticeship program, we can train tree surgeon assistants as well as potentially part-time folks that are facing layoff could be brought over to supplement the complement of the crews that are currently there.
Thank you very much. Another card here. Art? Sweatman? Sweatman. Didn't recognize that E.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm also here in support of the motion that you have put forward regarding trees. When the mayor talks about public safety, he usually talks about cops and fire. Well, I want to let you know in urban forestry, we are public safety also. Public safety isn't just about arresting people and putting fires out. There's also other hazards that we provide the service for. In urban forestry, we trim about 40,000 trees per year, but we also respond to about 1,800 emergencies per month, tree-related emergencies. We obviously maintain public right-of-way. We trim to allow emergency vehicles safe passage and sanitation trucks. And we also trim for LEPD visibility for their helicopters and to keep, in problem areas. That's a very important function that we provide. Listen, we're not here to rush through our jobs. We're not here to make a profit. What we're here to do is provide a public safety, and we want we don't finish a job until everything is safe. So we can respond like nobody else can. Nobody can respond to not only emergencies the way we can, but nobody can respond to the needs of the community. When certain areas have to be trimmed, a 12-year cycle is too long. So sometimes we have to get there a little sooner. We're here to do that job, and I hope you'll consider. I hope that motion will pass. But thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
I'd like to tell you one thing. There's money to do the tree surgeon trainings. There's a lot of the city's received a lot of green jobs training money through the RF, through the stimulus package. So there is within our workforce development system actually money to help us do this work.
Great. Thank you very much. And I just want to say for the record on that motion that although it wasn't heard in committee yesterday, there's a lot of work being done. So whenever that comes back, rest assured that the CAO and the relevant departments are working today and until we come back with a solution to that. So even if it wasn't publicly aired, there's a lot of work being done on that. So we will work on that. Well, thank you. That this item? Okay. Jimmy Francis.
Good afternoon. My name is Jimmy Francis. I'm a tree surgeon assistant with Urban Forestry. As I just want to comment on, elaborate more on what Art Swayman was talking about. I've been with the city for 5 years, and someone had mentioned about the emergencies earlier. I work on a emergency truck Monday through Friday. One weekend I got off at 5 o'clock. I got a call out for emergency at 7 p.m., worked until 1:30. Got another call for emergency at 2 o'clock. It's around the clock. It wasn't about the pay. It's because I care about the city. And I think our department is very important to the city. People think lack of it. Contracting work is going to eventually cost the city more money because City of Beverly Hills got rid of their tree trimming department. It used to cost them $50 per tree. Now it's costing them $600 per tree the last couple of years. Contracting work, the contractors will low bid, and they feel like they can do the work a lot better, but this is what we do. We get yearly training as far as on equipment, so forth, so on. I don't believe it would take 18 months to do line clearing because there is tree surgeons already that do line clearance anyway, and they have the line clearance certification already. And
they hand down their experience to us, to assistants, new people to come in. So we do have the experience. We have to clear the lines that's in the parkways, the trees are in the lines. We do that anyway, the line clearance. So we do have some experience of line clearing. I don't feel it would take 18 months, and I don't feel that it would take a lot of money to train us, because there's a lot of people in our department that's already experienced in line training. So I think it's very vital to keep our department together, and we can do the work better than the contractors can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. Okay, next item.
Item number 4, continued from October 7, 2009. Communication from the Public Works Committee and ordinance relative to adding subsection A to section 62.118.2 of the Los Angeles Municipal Code, requiring any restaurant wishing to engage in dining activities within the dedicated public right-of-way to obtain a revocable permit. This matter was referred to the Public Works Committee by council action on August 12, 2009.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, council member. My name is Len Paco. I'm with the Bureau of Engineering. I'm here to report back on the proposed fee for sidewalk dining. A little background on this matter. The proposal to charge a fee was a recommendation by the Bureau of Engineering to the Board of Public Works in response to the board's request to review and revisit the board's sidewalk dining policies and to include a mechanism to monitor and update the permit to ensure continuous compliance of the permit conditions. We prepared 2 reports for your consideration, one for the fees and one for parking requirements. In response to your committee's comments during the October 2009 committee meeting, you asked us to report back on the fees that other cities charge, complaint-based fee proposal if applicants were found out to be out of compliance, and look into a sliding scale fee based on the size of the dining area and parking requirements for sidewalk dining. Let me address the first report of the fees first. In this revised report, we included 3 recommendations for the fees. One, the first recommendation went before full council back in August 2009 and is our original fee proposal. We're keeping it as part of the recommendation. Basically, it's a proposal fee of $300, which includes the cost for administering the renewal of about $160 and inspection of a $140, which makes up the $300, to be charged biannually every 2 years, and is based on the estimated cost of the expenses the city incurs when providing the service. The service includes mailing out notices for renewal, verifying permit conditions, verifying ownership and insurance status, and site inspection to verify that they are in compliance with their permit requirements. This recommendation that went before council already includes an ordinance that was prepared by the city attorney and is basically ready to go. The second is, in response to the committee's comments, is a new one that we're proposing, and this is for a reduced fee from $300 to $160, and basically, or $80 per year for administrative services only. This does not include the physical site inspection of the property, but what we will do instead is we'll require applicants to submit a signed and notarized affidavit declaring under penalty of perjury that the restaurant is in full compliance with their revocable permit conditions, and failure to do so prior to the expiration date will cause the permit to expire, which revokes their privilege to operate a dining area in public right-of-way. This recommendation requires the preparation of an ordinance by the city attorney. The third recommendation...
Is it sliding scale? Is it third?
The sliding scale, actually, we did review, and it's included in our report. However, we didn't feel that we wanted to recommend this because this alternative fee structure is based on the size of the area of encroachment on the sidewalk, which...
Well, let's do this. Let's, as I'm refreshing my memory on this item,
Sure.
my colleagues on this committee were the ones that had issue, and they were the ones recommending a different approach. I think it was Mr. Smith on the sliding scale, one of them, Mr. Alarcon. Why don't we, instead of going through this now and perhaps them raising issue again in council, that we'll continue this item so that, and we'll find a date certain when they're going to be present for this item so we can present it again, because I think they were the ones who were raising issue with this. But which, and I understand the city attorney's office has issue with the sliding scale might not pass muster. Is that right? Yeah.
That's correct. Keith Pritzker, Deputy City Attorney. The problem, of course, here is that we can impose a fee if that fee is, of course, based on the cost of us providing a service. And Lem did a fine job of explaining exactly how that fee would be assessed under those first two scenarios that he outlined. However, if you start talking about basing the fee on the area that's being used for dining, well, it's not being based on the service that's being provided any longer. So it starts to look, maybe it's more like a tax or something other than a fee. So that could create some legal problems in itself. The other issue is that has been presented to me in this connection is whether the city has the right to do something like a lease. And the answer is no. We have the ability to maintain a certain area for street use purposes. We have an easement over property on streets, which where the fee interest is, of course, held by the underlying property owner, and that's for passage of pedestrians and vehicles. We, of course, also have utilities that run through the streets. In this case, we are proposing, under certain circumstances, to allow a limited encroachment into the sidewalk area, of course, for dining. And it seems reasonable and appropriate that if we're going to do that, there should be some kind of fee associated with making sure that we can protect the interests of the traveling public. We want to make sure that people who might be in wheelchairs can get through, and so ADA is complied with, and there might be a variety of other issues that the public has an interest in. But we can't do this based on the square footage of the area involved.
And which which of the options do you recommend?
We recommend both, and the third one, we have a third one, which is a penalty fee proposal, which we didn't include before. Okay. And again, this addresses some of the committee's questions in our prior meeting. But this penalty proposal, in the event that street services finds that somebody is out of compliance, then they have pretty much 3 strikes within the year. The first penalty is $420, and that's based on an inspection fee plus a penalty fee of $280. The second violation is $700, and the third would be if there was a third non-compliance matter for this restaurant within a year, there's the option to revoke the permit altogether.
Okay. Well, we'll continue this item. I know that my 2 colleagues on this committee had a lot of interest in this, and I'll try to give them another opportunity to weigh in on this before we send it to full council.
Sure.
Sorry about having you wait. And probably doing it again.
All right.
Come back. Thank you very much. Next item.
Item number 5, continued from November 19, 2008. Motion, Garcetti, Wesson, Reyes, Rosendahl, Hahn, relative to instructing the Bureau of Contract Administration, with the assistance of the city attorney, to report in connection with providing preferential consideration in bid processes for contractors that have apprenticeship programs. This item has also been referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. We're going to note and file this motion, but I thought we'd present it here because the issue of apprenticeships are being discussed all over the place, so it'd be worthwhile at least to hear this motion that's been in this committee for some time and hear your thoughts on it.
On the motion, I didn't catch the last part.
On the motion, yes, on the motion.
Yes, sir. Russ Drizella, Bureau of Contract Administration, Chief of General Services. The issue of apprenticeship standards in public works is covered with complexity in the California Labor Code. The motion's intent is a noble one, and that would be to encourage any type of outreach and the giving of opportunity to train young people to have a gainful career. The issue that is difficult is that the labor code itself sets the bar, the standards for compliance. The California Public Contract Code, Section 1103, says a public works project shall be awarded to the lowest responsive bidder. And it's clear, and of course, I defer to our general counsel here to articulate that. Enforcement of the California Labor Code is, in better times when we have better budget situation and staffing, is a more effective way to encourage contractors to obey the laws that are on the books already, that their public works contracts require them to obey across the board. And the issue of offering any preferential treatment to someone who simply obeys the law, it puts a complex surface on the bidding process. And I defer to Mr. Jordan here to elaborate.
Yeah, Ted Jordan, Assistant City Attorney. I agree with everything Russ says. We expect people to comply with the law, and we will take action against them when we learn that they do not. Our law and the state law as well requires us to award these kinds of contracts to the lowest responsive bidder. A company that's, a firm that's compliant with the law basically stands on equal footing with everybody else, and they're all expected to comply with these apprenticeship requirements. Within the charter, there is a very limited and not often used ability to provide preferences for local contractors, but that's fraught with complexity, and local is county, not city. And it really doesn't address the component of who the labor is. It just is where the company is located. But so there's very limited options in terms of giving actual preferences that deviate from the lowest responsive bidder rule.
Great. Thank you. It was well summarized, and we'll note and file this motion. Again, sorry to keep you waiting till the end.
No problem. Our pleasure, sir. Thank you.
I think that about ends our committee. Is that?
That's correct.
Correct. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.